blended learning structure to have face.
Give us the presentation. I will ask Maxime to share the screen whenever he's, and welcome.
Here we go. Do you see well my screen?
Perfect.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation, Thiago and Susanna. I'm glad to be here this afternoon. And let's say I will try to do my best to be at the same level of the previous speakers because that was really, really interesting. On my side, I have a profile that is slightly different from the previous ones. I'm more into the IT and the entrepreneurship and the startup ecosystem. And I'm happy to participate to your course this afternoon because my goal is here to show you how the overall methodology and the process that Thiago is showing to you students does apply to many other areas outside health. And it's a very common framework that we use in technology, we use in business, we use in many different areas, because it's exactly how we innovate and how not always you build, but rather how you fail fast so that you will innovate better. And by applying that and having started a lot of things in my life and at the end gaining experience from it, I may say that building some startups really changed my philosophy in life, and now I can't really get out of that very process. Even in on my personal life, when I'm tinkering some toys for my children, I also try to do some very simple stuff and building up MVPs and so on. Among the few experiences I have, I will try to focus this afternoon on this very specific one. Once upon a time, I started a company about trying to find you the right size of clothing when you buy online. And I will try to show you our journey during that and how the overall innovation process did apply to us, even if it was starting almost 10 years ago, because we had a long run, we were lucky. And that's exactly how it still applies today to any kind of field. And the bottom line of that is that sustainability in your project is not an option. Just a few words on me, not to rephrase what have been told earlier. I'm a consultant, I am an entrepreneur, and I'm a teacher. I'm focusing on disruptive innovations and trying to teach to students in health and science and biotechnology how the data can change their mindset and how with technology they can improve their lives and they can shape the future. Because being literate in technology, being able to innovate is not an option nowadays, especially in times of uncertainty, as you were told before. I will try to place myself in your whole process in the ideation phase, once that you have a lot of knowledge on service design, design thinking, a lot of methodologies and a great framework on that. There is a step in which you start implementing and trying, and this is exactly where my presentation comes in. I will try to show you how I implemented, how I failed, how I succeeded, and the overall process. Should you have any question during this presentation, feel free to raise your hand or to just jump in and say it out loud or ask it in the chat, the most convenient form for you. So the whole thing is about what exactly is a sustainable project? How in this overall innovation process do you reach a threshold that you can say my project is sustainable? What's sustainability in there? I tried, from my experience, to boil it down to 9 building blocks, and that applies to either start a project on a small scale or bigger transformation projects that I can do in Fortune 500 companies in any kind of business line. The first 4 mandatory blocks that you need to achieve, and without that you can't go further, are the scalability of a project. No matter how great your idea is, it needs to be scalable without you dying from tireless, exhausting activities all the way long. You need to be able to grow your operation, to grow your idea, to scale up or scale out, depending on how you build up your organization, without increasing your risk of failure or reducing your margins or earning less no matter how you earn your money. The next building blocks once you are able to scale is to make sure that on the long run, you still stay different from your competitors. You still have this permanent increase on competitivity and differentiation from the rest of the pack, because once you have an idea, you can be sure that many other people in the same time frame as you, even not knowing you, not knowing that you had that idea, had exactly the same ideas. So you won't be the only one thinking about that, but you need to be the only one to roll it out the best in class possible. The fourth building blocks in blue among the mandatory will be to lower the risk of commoditization. That's a marketing concept, but it's rather to say you need to create value. You do not need to create something, some stuff. You need to really add value to your final user, your final customers. Otherwise, they will just consider you as part of the scope and not really differentiating. Once you're able to add value to your users, your direct customers, you may try to capitalize on that and add value around your own business, add value to your suppliers, add value to your partners, add value around that so that you reshape the value chain in your business domain. That's a very challenging one, but can be achieved if you're a big company. And it really secures your path as a leader. The other green building blocks about sustainability that I put that in are, and it's a more, let's say, modern way of seeing it, is how you make sure that your project contributes to a broader scale and to wider objective than simply your just company or your very own idea. How do you ensure that your operations are improving society, are sustainable on an environmental perspective, that it has a good durability on the long run, no matter the societal trends about that. For example, if you take a home delivery service in e-commerce, when you order some food online, or if you order a lot of things on Amazon, it makes a whole difference on the CO2 bottom line if you get a parcel delivered each time you place an order, instead of grouping all your orders in a one package that you get once a week. So instead of buying impulsively, it groups your parcel, it makes it cheaper for the whole shipping process, and it saves a lot of CO2 and a lot of energy. And when you've done that, you're almost reshaping your ecosystem towards the sustainability, because once you will be the one leading the domain, saying, oh, we really want to be the leader for sustainable home delivery for food and groceries, by virtue, you're pushing everyone else in your business domain to do the same. And because you will be the first one, you will get the early adopters as the customers, and then the early majority, and then you get the market on a winner takes all approach almost. And the last building block, the inspire, because you're going to do something that will be really interesting, inspiring to the others, you will leverage an energy that will really hack your growth, because you will be an inspiring company where customers will want to come place an order. You will be an inspiring company for your employees, and they will go extra mile to build up onto your idea and push further your business. If you're not inspiring at the very end, your idea will be a hype and you will die on the long run, become a commodity or become something on the past. As long as you're still inspiring, you can strive further and longer over time. So that was for the overall ambition. Now, if we focus on the first 4 blue building blocks, let's see what happened with the startup. With that very small story, at the end, I will try to give you some 9, I would say, nuggets of knowledge and I've lessons learned the hard way from the start of life, field experience. Picture yourself almost 10 years ago, when there was the beginning of the internet in Europe, where we didn't have fiber, we didn't have Zoom, we had merely Skype with a really loosey, pixelish definition, and we had the DSL modems, some even modems that were still 56K, the noisy ones. And maybe some of you were still in diapers. No, some of you were still in, let's say, preschool. At that time, that was the very beginning of the e-commerce. People were still reluctant to put their credit card number online. The websites were not always responsive, not always really fast, but still, that was the beginning of the, right after the chasm in fashion. People were trying to start to buy something online and say, well, never mind, some stores, some companies are offering me free return. No, they were trying to lower the barrier to place your order and make it easy to return if it's not the right size. And some other companies weren't. And we spotted a lot of frustration at that time among our friends, among our family, among people we didn't know. When they come to place an order online, the transformation rate was pretty low because they didn't know on a clothes they can't try, on a garment they can't touch, which size they need to pick, depending on the elasticity of the fabric, depending on their body shape, depending on the specification of the garments. So at the end, between a medium or let's say a large that has a straight cut or anything that comes to the style, who knows exactly if you want to take a medium or large or something like that. Even if you go to a store, you need to try out. So what would you buy that online? And it was a glass ceiling on the transformation rate. And the cost of processing back the orders was really, really high for most of the brands because they weren't really organized for that. So it was a manual, labor-intensive process, so a costly one. And with a few friends of mine, we came up with an idea that we took a lot of time to test thoroughly to make sure it's feasible. What if we could come up with a lot of data with a simple algorithm that would be able to tell you, oh, hello, Jane, welcome to this brand. On that very t-shirt, you should go for a small. And on another website, another item, oh, hello, Jane, on that other brand and this nice dress, you should go for a medium, or you should go for a size 40. Oh, you want to shop anything in Germany and that's a different size system. You want to shop in Spain and that's a different size system, or UK, pick an 8, and so on. So that we were aiming to lower the entrance barrier and having a widget installed on the website that will just pre-fill for you, knowing you and knowing the garment, what size to pick. That was for the customer side to lower the burden and the hardness of choice to pick the right size. But the other perks for the retailer, for the brands, it will make you more sales because people were more likely to buy. It will also lower the return rate because they will shop the right size the first try. And that will also lower the return rate at the end because it will cost you less money to do so. And of course, we would take part a few percentage of that money that we save for you. But to do that, it's a strong engineering process. I will try to take you down to that journey. We started with this first company, and we made a lot of pivots to finally crack the problem here. The first idea was, let's focus on just picking the right size for the customer. But to do that, we would require, on one hand, some customer data, your height, your weight, your bust width, a lot of body measurements like that. And also on the other side, some garment data, the size of the skirt, the width, the height, the depth, the tissue, many specifications. And even if at that time, We didn't have all the methodologies that nowadays are very well documented and the approach well stabilized. What we did at that moment was design thinking and service design and a lot of late night tinkering to make it work. And with all of the effort, we managed to secure the 1.2 million funding from various investors at the latest round. We made some pivots on the journey, mostly for three main goals. The first one was to hack the growth, because after our first MVP, we noticed a lot of glass ceilings, a lot of threshold we cannot really break, a lot of barrier we cannot really overpass. So we needed to shift the way we were acquiring users, to shift the way we were playing with the data, to go faster, easier, and to scale up, of course. We also needed some other way to pivot, because we needed to enrich the business model. At some point, we needed to make more money from exactly the same effort, to increase our revenue stream. And at the end, to reach what we thought was the product market fit. Because having an MVP is not always the product market fit. That's just one of your many tries to reach it. The first stage of that was a lot of tryouts on pieces of paper on how to set up the algorithm that will secure your data on one hand as a consumer, your body measurements, and with the garment specification, make sure that you fit in a small, that you fit in a medium, that you're gonna not fit in a large and not fit in an extra small, for instance. And once we had, let's say, average answers on two sizes, which one we should pick, depending on, are you really liking skinny jeans, or do you prefer large baggy jeans? What are you up to as a consumer? It's not that because that you fit on an engineering perspective, that it's exactly what you're going to buy. We have some notions of style here, some notions of personal comfort, and so on. But first, we needed to come up with an algorithm and a way with the existing data to make it work. It took something like a year from that phase. A lot of build, measure, learn, try over, until we had a version of that algorithm that we were proud of and easy to work with for the average consumer. Nothing technical, nothing complicated, and it took us a lot of time and a lot of statistics and late night tinkering. So at the end of our first iteration, we really gained from experience on how to take measurements from users, how to let the users take themselves the measurements and still be accurate, and a lot of testing to reach the accuracy of 90% of success to pick the right size, based not on our evaluation, but rather on self-evaluation from our friends and family, and then broader intensive user testing. It's not because that you test, that you service work, that everyone is going to use it exactly the same way. It's not because that you made it work that the average user that you do not know and you do not really know, let's say, his level of rigor when taking the measurements and so on, that will really play with your tool the same way as you did. So that was our first MVP rollout that helped us securing several thousands of users in France. It was a great success at that time, but still we needed to scale up. At some point, we noticed that we had several limiting factors that we need to tackle. And therefore, we need to shift the innovation approach that led us to that first stage. The first one is how to let the users measuring themselves easily. It's not by providing a huge form in which you ask a lot of information, you provide a descriptive approach. It's not a medical exam. It's not something that you should go for a physician and get all your body measurements taken. We needed to think again the overall service, the overall user journey through our experience, to lower the entrance barrier, to make things more simple, so that we could pass from the early adopters to the early majority, across the chasm here. The other aspect was to predict properly what size you're going to be in a given brand. We need also to know the brand and to know also the item. So if we want to have a broader coverage from, I don't know, instead of having 100 brands, growing up to 1,000 or 10,000 brands, and to have an easier process to add to our database every collection every year, instead of measuring every items by hand. We needed to scale up the process, to automate, to think different. And also, we noticed all the way that the data we were provided by the brand companies wasn't always accurate, or wasn't always matching every item from the collection, because, oh, you know, that model was finally changed by the subcontractor. Oh, we had to change the subcontractor, so, oh, sorry, what you get in the shop or what the customers are getting is not exactly matching the data we gave you. May drive you crazy, but that's how life works. And when you're advising the customer not the right size, they're coming back at your service saying how pissed they are. And it creates not really a good experience from no one around the table. So we needed to secure the garments data and have more and more accurate. We needed to secure the user's acquisition with an easier way to capture them, to get them to our service. When you're at that stage, that you spend almost several years of your life thinking exactly at the same problem, trying to optimize it very deeply, this is where the framework that Thiago is showing you is really helpful. Because this is when you have the tools to reset your mind, start from a clean slate, because you have a framework, an approach that delivers, even if your mind is clogged by the previous first MVP you rolled out. No matter how proud you can be of that MVP, you just need to throw it away and start over. You will gain from the experience you already had. You may not do the same mistakes again, but you need to do something different to circumvent the issues, the limitation we're having. So we went through a second big iteration that was close to a relaunch, a reboot of the company. Instead of having a very efficient pattern matching, we aim for machine learning, because the technology became a commodity at that time. 10 years before, it wasn't. 4 years from now, it will be cheaper than it is nowadays. And 5 years before now, it was not that very more expensive than it is nowadays. Because the cloud became a commodity, that technology was available for simple startups like we were, because we didn't have the funding yet at that moment. And we were able to access and harness the power of the Azure's cloud for machine learning. And we built up some predictive models for just with a few clicks and a few simple questions on how tall are you, female, male, what is your age, what is your body shape, how comfortable are you with skinny jeans? Oh, by the way, what are your favorite brands? Could you please tell me if you already, what are your favorite sizes in your favorite brands, because you may know them. And based on that, on those very simple questions, and because of all the data we already had previously, we were able to build up a prediction machine learning based system that was able to predict the measurements of the users without taking any from the user, with a prediction rate close to 96%. So 6 points better than the previous version with the lower entrance barrier, but on a lot of effort from our engineering team. And we also needed to diversify the data coming from the garments to have something with less interactions, more automated integrations from the brands, so that we can enlarge our overall catalog. And that was for our second MVP. If I had to start the company not 10 years ago, but rather 5 years ago, I would have gone for the machine learning base, not for the first version I had, because technology was accessible, because the frameworks, for the coding frameworks in Python and Java and Scala were available at that moment. We also noticed that many of our users were also experimenting a second phase of their problem on the empathy map, something that was not just the size, because coming to you with the right size was only when they really wanted the product. And when you go in a retail store, you have a lot of display, a lot of clothing in the same places. So it's inspiring to you. And you may even have vendors that may give you some advice and say, oh, I really think that this item should look good on you, or this one might be also well suitable to go with the one you already have. So upselling, cross-selling, a lot of marketing tricks that gets you into buying more and coming out of the store with a smile and a few €100 less on your account. But it doesn't exist on a website. On a website, you just have images. So no matter the quality of it, that's very hard to push another product by saying, oh, you like that skirt? Maybe you should go for this robe. Or you like that coat? You should go also for this jean, and so on. That's another issue, because it's about style, not just the size. And we tried, while rebranding our system for the second MVP, to pivot to something bigger, wider, that will also push to the user some style recommendation and not just the right size. So meaning, instead of being a small widget that will be located on the brand's web page, we will be a go-to website, a platform, an ecosystem in which we're going to feed some product from many brands and have a full search engine for the style. And we went for that because we managed to secure some investment. So at that second MVP rollout, we secured 1 million funding that really helped us continuing our adventure, and we rebranded the platform. And so on. That was our two major changes. Later on, we wanted to capitalize on the users' data to broaden our business perspective to fitness, to health, to anything that could help you track your body changes over time. And we also wanted to diversify the services around that, like a personal shopper, personal trainer to get you fitting in the clothes you want, and so on. On that journey, because I told you what worked, a lot of things didn't. Let me outline for you just a few. Some experimentations that didn't deliver at all. We tried to externalize, to partner with external research and development laboratories. Even if it may sound a good idea because it's an accelerator to purchase your research externally, depending on the cost of that research and the different terms and conditions to reuse it, you can't really you can't really rely to have a competitive advantage on something that anyone can buy because it's coming from externally of your company. It needs to be in-house, especially if you want to capitalize on that. Another thing that failed, 10 years ago, we wanted to give a try to body measurements from images. Meaning, instead of measuring yourself, you just take a few pictures and then we process that, and just by giving us a few dimensions of your body, we will deduce all the others. In 2010, think about the image quality that we had at that time. It wasn't feasible because 1 pixel was more than a few millimeters in the real life, and it's not accurate enough to properly estimate some measurements. We also tried some laser devices to have some in-store measurement spots that we can offer to our customers so that they will just stand still in a scanner. The scanner will turn around them, and zzz, they will get measured. It sounds like a nice idea because it gives you very accurate body measurements, but it costs a lot to set up in a shop, and it's very logistically complicated. And not every store, I mean, not every brand is okay to let you, to consider you a few square meters of their own shop. They already pay a lot for the rent just for setting up your machine, no matter how well and how happy the customers are to get measured. That's a place for which they can't sell items. So it was a no-go, even if it was technically speaking, on an engineering perspective, the best solution we may come up at all. But that's a no-go for the business. And the other experimentation that we had on a data science perspective was also trying to statistically analyze, knowing all the order history of a given brand on the online website. We could see which sizes or which item has a higher return rate than the others, and then say something like, oh, usually you go for a small when you're buying, let's say, a t-shirt. For that particular t-shirt model, 86% of the users are usually taking a small. For that one, they're taking a medium because the garment is not really with the same cut as the rest of the collection. So giving some statistical advice to the users based on their previous purchases, instead of just having something that measures them independently from the website. Long story short, retailers were not really keen to give us their order history data, even if it was anonymized, because at that time, data was not considered as a soil as it is now, but rather as a strategic or competitive advantage, even if they don't really use it. I would say that nowadays it's easier to get that, even with the GDPR, because it's not a concern, you can anonymize the data. But rather now we have the pride, we have the culture of marketing, selling the data for business purpose, data broking platforms and so on. So if I may summarize in one slide, all the pivots we made, because we made many, according to the literature and the framework. The first one we've made is a zoom out pivot. We started from a very small feature, knowing the garment, which size should you be? Small, medium, 8, whatever. And from that size recommendation system, we step back and build up a complete style recommendation engine. Because we did a customer need pivot. From the very small need of give me the right size, we went to, oh, how could I dress at all? Because I don't have any clue. That's mostly for male here. And we also did a platform pivot. We started from a small app that was scanning a barcode of an item and telling you, oh, for this you should take an M, to a complete website that has a lot of editorialized content on the style and the recommendation engine. And that led us to a business pivot because we enlarged our stream of revenue there with all the new sources of income. Then it led us to a growth engine because we hacked the growth another way to have more users and more brands joining us. And we created many of the channel pivot and technological pivots because of that. So if I may wrap up the 9 lessons I learned over the 10 years with this startup adventure, I would say first that you don't need to work more or harder. You need to work smarter. It took me less time with the power of the Amazon's cloud to build up the machine learning-based prediction models than the 5 years it took me before to build up the pattern matching algorithm from the garments and the cuts and the body shapes that we did on the first MVP. We boiled it down in 5 months instead of 5 years. Another thing, you really need to focus on actually helping people, not letting you, let's say, being blocked in your thinking process of just the art of helping them. When you're an engineer, you may have a tendency to over-engineer in the thing just because you can. Getting more accuracy, getting more coverage, getting more performance is not always what the users are wanting. They may just want something that works simply out of the box, but simplicity is not always accuracy. So you need to get a balance on that. Otherwise, you will just get exhausted yourself on the way. So focus on creating value to the users, not creating stuff, for the beauty of creating that. And to do so, there are small steps that you can take. The first one is remove the tiniest bit of uncertainty you may face. Then validate your learning. That's a kind of a build, measure, learn approach and repeat over and over. If you're stuck into the longer building phase, it will take you longer to measure, longer to learn, and then you will just mess up your timeline and your complete roadmap of your delivery. Small steps leads to a longer journey. To do those small steps, you need to define an MVP. You need to define a scope at which you're going to be happy because you're going to build it, but moreover, that will deliver value and the minimum value for your customers to say, okay, yeah, I'm happy with that. Thank you. And therefore pay with a smile for that price. Instead of you going to the very end of what you're going to be proud of because you will have a machine learning based system that will predict on the very high end accuracy. Nobody cares to reach the 2 millimeters accuracy because in between two sizes, a small and a medium, there is a 4 centimeters gap. So why reaching 2 millimeters? And between a medium and a large, that's for some brands in the US, 8 centimeters gap. No need to reach a millimeter. That's a threshold that was just another focus. Another point, because we lasted a few years, is that even if your technology or your core technological assets is key when you're innovating early, the competitivity, the strategic value of it fades very quickly. Because many people nowadays know how to program with the cloud. Many of your competitors can access the same power. So that's only your own innovation and your algorithms that are making the difference. Not the power of the technology anymore, not the quality of the hardware, just about your software and how smart your software is. And of course, timing is critical. We had a lot of competitors while we were doing that. Most of them had similar approaches of ours than we did, and some others had other solutions. And at the end, the market consolidated. But timing, being on time exactly when the market is mature, and expecting that kind of solution is the only moment when you can deliver. If you come up too early, nobody will remember you and nobody will need you. If you come up too late, places are already taken. So being on time with the right technology, with the right minimum viable product will let you to the product market fit I was talking earlier. And I try to apply those 9 principles of life to anything I'm trying to, any endeavor I'm taking, and any new projects I'm having, even if it's in a large company or Fortune 500. From startup to bigger companies, that's always the same innovation approach. Not always the same constraint, not always the same budget, not always the same timeline, but the very, very hard same lessons. So that was my perks for this afternoon. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you so much, Maxime. It was amazing. It was such a detailed presentation. Thank you so much for your presentation. I really liked it. We are going to keep the questions for the end, okay?